along this wall. Just deciding where. One there, and for balance, probably one there. Let's pull them up. So I'm just going to grab the spotlight, point light, and the actual sconce light. I could actually make a blueprint of this now if I wanted to, which might be a good thing to do. Let's do that. And it'll just make it easier for us to move around the building when we want to place them. This is a great thing about creating blueprints from objects like this. It really makes it easier for you to move it around without misaligning things like the lights and stuff. We'll call it sconce lights complete prefab. We'll put it in our blueprints subfolder. And that just keeps all of our lights and stuff together, so it's easy for us to place. Alright, let's deselect that one, jump up here and place that blueprint we just created. Let's rotate it 90 degrees. Now I've just got to eye how high I want this. Okay. Again, we may have to adjust the height of these once we get more furniture in, if they start to look like they're either too low or too high on the wall. Let's duplicate it one more time. Now again, I'm placing it in the same position on either side, so we got balance going through our door. I could place it here, but you see that makes it look unbalanced now. Right. Now I have a feeling I'm going to hang a tapestry, one of those ornamental Persian rugs. I think I'm going to hang one of those here on the wall, and that's going to actually use cloth physics. So I don't really want to place a light here for that reason. Let's place some of the columns through the windows to match the ones that we've got going on here now in our door jamb. We have this decorative column piece. Again, that was just textured up in Substance Painter using the cherry wood for the wood parts, a gold metallic paint for the top of the columns in here, and then like a black marble for the actual column itself. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I want to keep everything consistent. This gets back to what I was telling you guys about thinking about keeping everything looking like it's meant to go together. So that gold and black matches our frames here. We're using the gold and the black there, as well as the interior of the frame with that cherry wood frame. We've used it quite a bit in different spots along the building. Again, the gold paint here on the top of our urns. If I can get into a position where you can see it a bit better. So we're trying to keep everything looking consistent, and the best way to do that is to make sure you use the same textures for different objects. Yeah, it just helps to blend your level together a bit more easily, and it's the same gold we've actually used here on our ironwork as well. So I've created some columns that I want to place inside of our window jambs here, to match the ones we've got going on inside the door. So we're just going to find them now. I'm in my blueprints folder. That's not what I want. I want to be my models folder. No, I must have passed it. Where are you? There it is. I'll open it up to show you what it is. Again, it's just a half column, okay, that I'm going to be placing in the window frame, just to add a bit more interest to our windows. Not necessary, just helps to add more detail to the level as well. And it's only a half a column, so it's not like we're using a huge amount of polygons here anyway. Let's scale it up to make sure it fits. And I'm reusing the same texture maps that I'm using here for this column. So I'm not adding any more memory by doing this, apart from the extra memory of the polygons for this part of the geometry. Now what I could have done is kept that column separate and put it together in the in Unreal, and then reuse that column here. That would have been a good way to go, a better way to go. We'll just scale this one up until we get it to fit. Okay, again I want to make sure it's right up against the side of that window frame, and we're going to put it about the middle of the actual window sill. Okay, I can see through there, so it needs to come back just a little bit more. Alright, let's duplicate it for the other side.
Just because you had the last word doesn't mean I won't get stronger. I come up out of disaster. I'm the lead rebellion soldier.
And there we go. Again, it just helps to add more detail, and it's a bit difficult to see here with the lighting the way it is, but it just helps to add a bit more detail to our window sills. We are going to have curtains here though, but again, you will see them from the outside when our camera moves through our environment and past the windows. We've got a few windows to do. I'm just wondering whether we should do them while we're here. Jumping into a couple of these rooms. We haven't actually done them yet, so yeah, let's pull those window frames for the back here. And I actually need to add the one in the door jamb. So let's start with the window columns and just grab both of them and duplicate them. The same thing here. We haven't actually set up our reflection zone, so the textures are looking a bit black. They'll come good when we put a reflection zone in there. think what I might do here is do each of these individually. I don't think they're going to match exactly. In fact, what we may do here is I may jump to unlit mode. It'll just make it easier for me to see what I'm doing. So they may need to come up just a little bit more. Should be good. Okay, let's duplicate them again for the other side. Looks like these ones have to be scaled down a little bit. That was a little bit too much. There we go. And finally the two at the end there. Not mean to deselect them then. Alright, let's grab the door frame, which is the last bit we need, I think. Now this is made up of three sections. There's the two side sections and the top. So what I could do here is I could just use that top section somewhere else in the building. It may look good somewhere else. Duplicate that. And we'll move it back. I think we went a bit too far back there. There we go. Looks like we may have to scale this one down just a little bit. Let's start with the columns. I think it's probably easier. Now I've got to find that one that's popped in here. There it is. Okay, you're a bit low. Alright, let's turn lighting back on again. Okay, so we've got the window frames done down on the lower floor. The door jamb is in. I'd like to actually finish off like this whole section, as in finish the plaster work. There's a couple of areas where we need to create some unique pieces of plaster. So let's do that. We need a rectangle and a square, and then a really long piece here. Before we do that, let's make sure we do a save all. We don't want to lose what we've done. And I think what we'll do is we'll jump into Max to do those pieces. But before I do that, I'm just going to take a quick break for a couple of minutes, guys. I'll grab a fresh cup of coffee. I'll leave you with my Be Right Back screen. It'll only be a few minutes while I make a fresh coffee, and then we'll tackle finishing off the plaster work for this whole section. So I'll be back in just a few minutes, guys. Okay. Have my coffee, so I'm good to go. Alright, let's jump into Max and create these final plaster sections for this room. I think what we'll do is we'll create a plain plaster section for here, and we'll do a slightly decorative pieces for here and here. We can probably reuse these in other parts of the building anyway, the plaster we create here. So into Max. Now jumping in here and trying to adjust the size inside the building is not really going to work for us, because the inside of the building here isn't really completely decorated like we have in Unreal at the moment. If I can turn it around. Here we are. But we can get an idea of the size. There's a couple of ways we could do this. We could do it in Unreal by creating just a separate basic object like a cube and exporting that for our size. But we should be able to get away with just judging it by eye here. I'm just going to move these curtains out of the way so I can see the actual positions of the pieces that we need. Now we have to remember we do have window sills that sit part way down here. So I think the easiest way to do that will be to... actually, don't think I brought those in. Yeah, again, my apologies for the banging that's going on in the background if you can hear it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this sill piece over so that we can get a better idea of the size we need. Make sure I've got angle snap turned on. And this is just for the benefit of size for us. We're not really worrying about making it pretty in the max here. In fact, I'm not even going to rotate it to be the right way around. I'm just going to place it so it's sort of about as high as it should be. I'm so used to right clicking and going duplicate from Unreal, but I just hold the shift key down in max to make a duplicate. And let's pop that one up there. And that should be good enough. We just want it so that we can get an idea of the size of the plaster pieces. Alright. I'm just going to move them over so they're a little bit more centered. There we go. So we just need to create a plaster piece for the top here. So I'm just going to use the box. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select looks like I actually already have those pieces there already created, which is probably from the original when I made it back in UDK. But what I'm going to do here is select these pieces and isolate them so we don't have to worry about everything else going on in the scene. And now let's create a box. And remember too, if it's not exactly the right size, we can always do a slight scale in Unreal. Let's make it that. Might be a bit thick, so let's pull it back. I'm amazed if you guys can't hear that banging. What they're doing is they're removing a part of a building from next door. That's what they're doing at the moment. That's what the banging is. And again, I'm going to make this a little bigger than the piece that we need, just so that we have some room to hide parts of it. So that's one of our pieces. Let's duplicate that. Again, just a shift key and max to make a copy. And those two should be good. Let's exit out of isolation mode. And pull those two pieces out. Now what I want to do here is I want to match this as closely as I can, but we can't get all this detail in those small pieces. It'll just look too busy, but I do want to get some of the detail. So what I'm going to do is I think we'll start with the frame. Yeah, I think I'm going to go into sub-object mode here and select the frame pieces. In fact, I'm only going to select that corner. I'll do a detach as a clone. That way I don't destroy my original mesh. Let's pull this frame out, pull it forward. So again, I'm going to go into sub-object mode and duplicate one of these corners, or detach as a clone. Come on, Max. Every time. There we go. I'm going to mirror it. I'm also just going to make sure my pivot is actually in the middle of the object, so it's easy for me to move. Now, just going to look at for reference at the original here as to how far from the edge they are. Okay. I'm going to select the verts here at the end and scale that up. Now I could select the verts here and scale this one back up as well, which is what I'm going to do, but if I don't preserve the UVs, it's going to start squishing my texture that I've got going on that decorative border. So in Max, I'm going to turn on preserve UVs if I can find it. Sometimes you can get a bit lost here with Max with its all of its options. It's here somewhere. Just there. I'm going to turn preserve UVs on so that when I move my verts, it's not going to squish my texture. You see my texture stays the same. Yeah, it's a really handy thing to use in Max. Let's duplicate this. Again, let's do a mirror. Again, I'm going to pull these UVs down a bit because I don't want the border that low to the base of the plaster piece. Let's just do a rotation. Just want to make sure I get these lined up correctly before I start making any more changes to the verts. Okay, height-wise that looks okay. So now we just need to make sure that these ones line up. Alright, now again I'm going to move my vertices up so that they line up with that corner piece. Okay, we should be good. Going to jump into the perspective view here to get a better look at that. That's good. I'm just checking to make sure that when I did my mirror, it didn't mirror it the wrong way. I may just turn on default shading here. It gives me, I can actually see the detailing in the frame better. It should be fine. Let's attach these. Before we do the attach to put them all together, let's duplicate it for the base here. So I'm going to select the frame again. And duplicate. I was holding down the caps key instead of the shift key. Duplicate that again. And this one. This one's going to be a bit more tricky because it's a much narrower piece of plaster. Let's jump back into our front viewport. And again, I'm going to move the verts down. And move them up on this one. Alright. Let's attach these pieces together now so they're one object. And let's do the same for these ones. Now doing it this way means I can reuse the texture that we've already created inside of Unreal for these frames. So all we really need to do is create a new texture for the plaster pieces in the background as well as the middle part here. So again, I'm going to, I think it's 2. I'm going to select the plaster in the middle. Detach it again as a clone. Now, I want to see if we can use it without me having to do a retexture, or if I may have to go into Photoshop and actually create a separate texture for this plaster work. So I'm just going to pull it forward so it's in front of our plaster. Basically what I want is I want 2 of these at the top here and 2 of these at the bottom here. Now I think the ones at the bottom we can probably reuse. Again, I'm just going to pull it back so it sits within our frame. We may just be able to get away with it. I think I can cut the texture, the asset here, just before we see this part of the texture. The ones at the bottom here, though, are a little bit big. So what I may have to do is scale the that plaster decorative piece down. Oh, actually, I'm not high enough, so I probably won't be able to do that. So if I move that up into position, we're going to start seeing this part of the texture, which I don't want. So I think what we're going to have to do is move these in. I want to scale the verts here out a little bit so we cover that little hole. Now, my texture is moving. I didn't turn on preserve UV, but it's not distorting it enough. You're going to notice in that little corner. Probably the same up here. But we can't use this texture because of this part of the texture map here. So I'm going to slice this mesh, probably through here. I'm going to detach the bottom half. Not as a clone though, I want it completely detached. Let's move this one down to the bottom for our texture plaster at the base. I think what I'll do here is I'm going to slice it around about the middle here. Again, we're going to detach it, but not as a clone, completely detached. That'll allow me to delete this piece in the middle because we don't want that. Let me scale these down. Got to be really careful here. I'm going to start to squash my texture a bit too much. It should be okay. We should be able to get away with squashing it just that little bit. Let's hide the top of these verts in the actual frame. Where is it gone? I am going to turn preserve UVs on here.